That's that. We're apparently live, so I'm told. No. Wouldn't the fans be disappointed if there was no kazoo? I was just about to start. I just had to turn on the live stream. This is the Techno Buffet podcast, episode number 577, recorded Thursday, March 3rd, 2022, in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So welcome to another exciting episode of the Android Buffet podcast. I'm going to be a bit subdued because I have a bit of a headache. As I was telling Jerry before we started recording, I was summoned to court for my jury duty service. And I was at the civil court, actually. They don't do chairs there. No, mostly just sitting in a room. They never actually impaneled me for any jury. Yes, out of all the people they summoned today, there were 12 people who were never impaneled, and I was one of them. So we just essentially sat there all day until they decided they didn't need us. Then they said, go home and come back in 6 years. Yes, I get $40 in 6 to 8 weeks. The cab costs more than that. Anyway, it was just one of those days where, again, just gave me a headache. And I've been trying to lick it all afternoon. But things happen. Other than that, next week I will be relocating again. After last week where they told me to come to the office and start working there again on Thursdays, they made an announcement that the office would reopen to all employees on March 14th, and it's not yet March 14th, so I was told that they didn't know why I started early, except that's what they told me to do. So I'm going to go, since after that point I won't be able to avoid anything, I'm going to go see my parents for a few days and help them with a couple of things before I go back to the office. They finally got somebody to resume work on their problems. So they need somebody to help move some things. Anyway, still warmer than New York right now. But it's been a productive week of doing some tech-related things. I fixed my outdoor sensor. So once again, I have an ESP home sensor that is outdoors. So I can tell you that the outdoor temperature, according to the sensor, is 34.5 degrees Fahrenheit. How does one calibrate a temperature sensor? Well, the best I can tell you is there are two temperature sensors outside. There's that one and there's the other one, and there's a bit of a variance between them. So I sort of averaged the two. Yeah, the reason why there's a slight variant probably has to do with the placement of the sensors, but Same thing with, I have two pressure sensors, one outside and one inside. The outside one says that it's 1024.9 hectopascals, and the inside one says that it's 1024.9 hectopascals. So there's a slight variant there. It keeps going between 0 and 0.1. Close enough, though. Also, again, I like having sort of the variant of one which is at ground level and the other which is one floor up. I think that explains the slight variant, also the different brands of sensors. I fixed a bunch of other things. All of my ESP Home stuff is working again. I cleaned out a bunch of automations in my Home Assistant that were left over from previous, let's just say, devices that are no longer there. And I think I mentioned to you that I had wanted to do a dual outlet device instead of two separate devices to control some stuff in one of the areas of my room. So I was able to get a device that has 3 independent powered switches and 1 pass-through outlet. I got a 2-pack, and then I flashed them using 2U convert, which because I got an older version of things was able to work because they've stopped. They essentially changed it so it doesn't quite work anymore since it flashes using an exploitation of security. But now I have 2 pass-through devices, one which is installed and now controlling all of this. So now I have that set up, which meant I had to do a bunch of other reconfiguration. So, a lot of little things. And eventually, again, everything marches forward. So that's where I am with that. And there, in regards to Home Assistant, they did release a new version this week. Version 2022.3. Yep. So there's some interesting things here, and I have not had a chance to install it, something that I usually save for the weekend. But they continued with their media improvements. So now it's improved the ability to use media and automation and scripts. So you can essentially select media and then have it played as a reaction to various things. So for example, their example is you could actually play your front door camera stream on your television when the doorbell rings. Well, if the doorbell supports casting, so if you can get the video feed from it, you can cast it to a cast device, which means now with the new options, you can tie those two things together. You can also essentially cast your Lovelace dashboard to a supported device. They have a DLNA, they have a DLNA media server and a radio browser integration. I'm a little confused about the radio browser integration. So, I like the idea of radio stations, but I don't really see that as a home automation thing. That you can now cast your radio stations within Home Assistant. That seems like more of an optional extension than a built-in feature. I am happy you can now upload media into your instance directly from the browser. So if you want to put in, let's say, an audio file that you're using as a notification, you don't have to do it in the back end. You can just upload it like anything else, which works out nicely. And there are a few other little things. Entity ID auto completion in the built-in code editor in Home Assistant, which is certainly helpful when you're trying to write a automation, and a few other interesting things. But again, I'm looking forward to using some of these to clean up some of my old automation code, of which I have a lot. I got rid of, I think, since that new feature where they won't automatically add all of your devices when they're found, only if they're associated with something else, I went in and deleted my device tracking integration, which deleted all of those ones that had been automatically added, and then re-added it, which had it rediscover the ones that were currently active on the network. And so going forward, I'll just have to approve everything myself, which, again, got rid of a lot of entries I didn't need. So did you do anything interesting in the automation thing? Did you get? Oh, before I forget, did you get the message that I sent you about your? You had asked me about the cough plugs, and I got you an answer. I sent it to you. I Yes, I contacted cough for you since you didn't. So cough. Well, I've spoken to the gentleman before, as I mentioned. So according to him, there was a supply problem. Well, remember, that's not really his day job. It's like a side hustle for him. So the factory in China is apparently having trouble getting ESP8266 modules for the run. So they think that they'll have it back in stock by end of March. Yeah. So yeah, but I know that you like them, so I went to find out what was going on there. I'm guessing by the fact you didn't see that, you didn't see the other message I sent you 2 weeks ago about how I had found a television show that I had overlooked with one of your favorite actors and was watching it. I found a show that aired in 2020 and was just renewed for a second season that stars Christian Kane on IMDb. And I had overlooked this because I didn't necessarily notice IMDb original content. Okay, clearly you haven't seen any of my messages. We're going to have to work on this. But give me a moment. The name is escaping me, so I'm just going to... So, Almost Paradise is the name of the show. I didn't say old, I said 2020. I said it didn't just come out. It came out 2 years ago. But I missed it 2 years ago. So I thought I would mention if you had overlooked this, that it, like I did, that it came out again just as things got a bit busy. I figured I would mention it to you because I know you happen to be a fan of Christian Kane. Okay. I enjoyed the setting. No, it's two. Well, a lot of things got delayed for various reasons. Either way, it had its moments. I have never actually been to Cebu, so did not know what it was like. Were you over there? The show is filmed and set in Cebu. Yeah, well, so have I, but that's what I'm saying. I've never. It's a fairly large city, but when I was in the Philippines, I never left Manila, so I wasn't sure because you'd mentioned a few times that you had been to various places. So either way, the show is interesting in that it's filmed there on location, and there aren't that many national properties that are filmed in the Philippines. So that does create a lot of interesting things to notice. Anyway, I can't say that it's like a show that you will remember for the rest of your life, but it was certainly entertaining. Anyway, moving along, there was some news. How do you feel about talking about some things that happened this week? Okay, so Ring, you know them. They decided to open up some of their features to third-party cameras, apparently for a price. So if you have an ONVIF, which is a standard for cameras, it apparently will work with Ring. However, again, there are some limitations. So people who want to do this will need a Ring Alarm Pro base station, the Ring Protect Pro subscription. So if you have one of these cameras, you can bring it in. But again, since you have to pay for a more expensive service, it means you need to be an alarm customer. So you can't, even though the camera itself is an IP camera and the standard goes over IP, apparently you need to be paying for pretty much all of their subscription services for it to actually be an option for you. So I'm not sure if that's a good thing per se, in the sense that not everybody is going to do that. I have some Ring cameras, but I don't necessarily need their alarm subscription. Also, to be honest, their interface is not necessarily the best. So I'm not sure why. Well, I'm not sure why I would pay to bring my cameras into their ecosystem. I think I'd pay to bring my cameras out of their ecosystem. But yeah. Moving along, Fire TV. So this is the Amazon overlay onto Android, has apparently, in their last update, blocked third-party launchers. Well, I could see why you would want to, because a lot of people do, either the Fire TV or the Fire tablet, people often want to change the launcher because there are a lot of things of an Amazonian nature that come with it. So I could see why Amazon might not want to make that easy. But at the same time, again, people buy a device, they would like to do what they'd like to do with it. If you are a Reddit user and you're using either the iOS or the Android app, apparently it got its biggest update in a while, and they're emphasizing discovery. I'm assuming that when you left Android, you switched your recommendation for a Reddit app, because you used to recommend, I think it was Reddit is fun. I don't know if they have an iOS version of that. So what have you decided to use on iOS? Okay. Is it a good one? Hopefully you read interesting things on Reddit. I find Reddit occasionally to not have useful things to read, but like everything else, there are good things and bad things on every platform. I don't know if I go into the parts of Reddit where there are things that I would really hate. I think the parts of Reddit that I go into, either there are people saying useful and interesting things, or there are people saying completely useless things. I've so far avoided the I know there's some like darker, seedier underbellies of Reddit. So far, I've avoided those areas, at least as far as I know. Yep. If you're using Google Messages, apparently they've been rolling out categorization. I haven't seen this yet, but the idea is that it could categorize your messages into various streams. And I'm not sure, because I haven't used a wide variety of SMS apps. Do other SMS apps do that? Allow you to categorize certain things into streams? Because Google tends to do things like this through, some form of machine learning, where they sort of know to classify certain things in certain ways, which are resources that not every app has. So I'm going to ask you, Jerry, have you noticed categorization in any SMS app you've ever used? Okay. Because the ones that I really want to categorize are like those automated messages from my bank. I'd like them, and I think they could figure those out. Like anytime they try to send me a security code because they won't let me use a TOTP app, that would be nice to put somewhere else. And then auto-delete very quickly thereafter. Why keep those? Here we are. There was an interesting article that revealed a feature of the Echo platform that I didn't know, which is how to monitor energy consumption. So because I'm not in the, notice I always say Echo app to avoid triggering anybody, but I did not know they had added an energy dashboard in their app. Well, I'm not taking credit for it. The article I read pointed it out. But if I didn't read articles that pointed out things I didn't know, then I would not learn. Is that not true? I can't figure out everything just by stumbling upon it in my daily life. I have to occasionally look for what other people are saying. So it looks interesting. I know that I'm interested in energy consumption. I just don't have enough useful data. And I haven't quite figured out a plan for it. I don't know about you. Have you figured out a way to get useful information on energy consumption that you might do something with? Because I do have, again, energy monitoring plugs, including the Cough and several Tasmota stuff. And the plug I put in, which is a multi-plug, actually does have energy monitoring, but it's 3 different plugs, and it doesn't monitor them individually. It's a collective monitoring. And since they're 3 different things, I don't know if that's very useful for me. Beyond that, let's see what else is going on. Oh yes, the Google Phone app is being redesigned to match the lock screen styles that changed in the last version. So they're, rounding some icons, adjusting the buttons. Nothing particularly exciting, but people like graphics, so you can check out our show notes to see pictures. Don't the pictures look nice, Jerry? Yes, I appreciate good design. Speaking of design, apparently several companies, including Vox Media, BuzzFeed, etc., are working on an alternative to Google's AMP format. Did you have an opinion on AMP, Jerry? I know we've talked about it a few times over the years. Well, I thought the idea of AMP sounded good, but from the beginning, the idea is we're going to make pages run faster, but you have to load these restricted resources from us, seem to be not consistent with what is important to me. I like the idea of saying, okay, we're going to have this simpler HTML language that'll load faster, that you can have people load instead of the full HTML page. Now, I think the long-term solution is to optimize HTML in general, but I understand the idea of mobile optimization. But I'd like to see what they come up with. It may or may not be something I actually care about. Yet to see. So over the last week, a lot of mention in the news has occurred of what's going on in Ukraine. And this isn't really the show to talk about that sort of situation. We're a technology show, but I found this interesting article from The Verge, which was a report on how researchers used Google Maps to track the invasion of Ukraine. Yeah, again, I just thought it was an interesting story that I came across, which is they were using Google Maps and radar imagery to track the movement of Russian troops and, of course, traffic jams. So Google's traffic monitoring told them that there were tanks heading towards the border. Yeah, but it's really interesting. Well, I think the whole situation is crazy, but I think this is interesting. But yeah, and it was likely not the military officers who had phones, but it was probably the phones of civilians who were stuck because of a result of the military moving down roads. But again, it's very interesting to read that, now this technology that's designed for one thing, revealed a whole other pattern that was happening. Moving along, if you were a fan of the Galaxy Note, which was the first, what they used to call phablet. So when it originally launched, everybody said this is too large for a phone. It's too big. And Samsung has finally killed the Galaxy Note name. So the form factor and idea of the Note will live on in the Ultra version of the phone. So they will still have large phones. They will just call it something else. But I just wanted to look this up because it just occurred to me. The original Galaxy Note. What was the screen size of it? I'm just going to look. So, 5.3-inch screen. Haven't our expectations changed a lot over the years? When I started with you talking about this, I had a Droid, and I thought a 3-inch screen was, I think that was 3.5. I thought that was big. And I'm talking about for my pocket, not necessarily for me to enjoy looking at. And now we've gotten to this point where, there's 6-inch screens. And again, people don't think they're big. Well, not everybody. If you have a Raspberry Pi, the Raspberry Pi has turned 10 years old. So it's almost as old as this show. Well, you missed the first ones, I'm guessing. I had a 1. I got rid of it because the newer ones were better, so I retired the oldest ones I had. Right now, the only Pi that I have in active use, and I'm not counting some of the arcade stuff I built because that goes on and off. There's only one Pi that I have that is on 24 hours a day. It's running my ADSB receiver elsewhere in this building. So for various reasons, it wasn't convenient to put the ADSB receiver in my apartment because there wouldn't be wonderful reception for the antenna. So I attached it to a Pi, and it's running elsewhere in the building, so then there wouldn't be as much signal loss between the antenna and the software receiving it. I thought so. Well, the people at Radar Box were nice enough they just sent me a free upgrade for my equipment. They're looking for people to host 978 megahertz receivers. And they've agreed, if you agree to host a receiver for 978 megahertz, they will send you an extra software-defined radio and a 978 megahertz optimized antenna. So I took them up on their offer, because I was only receiving ADSB, which is 1090 megahertz. So now, in addition to watching commercial planes, I can also watch a series of light aircraft. And since they gave me something for free, I'm going to say that I was contractually obligated to not leave it in the box for too long, because they asked that when people get it, that they install it within 3 to 4 days unless weather conditions required them to wait or something of that nature. So I installed the thing over the weekend, one of my many weekend projects, and now if a plane broadcasting on that frequency comes through, it'll be transmitted to the people who paid it, and it gets on my little thing. And I have a little website where I watch it. It's very relaxing. It's like an ant farm or like a game of life thing. Just, watching the little icons of planes move across the map of my neighborhood. I suggest if you're really bored sometime and you want just a nice soothing, like screensaver type image, give it a shot. And you can always go the extra mile and add in the air traffic controller audio. Also soothing. Anyway, moving along. David Boggs, who was the co-inventor of Ethernet, passed away. So there was an interesting article on this. Yeah, and if you look in the article that I linked to, which is from, of course, the New York Times, they have a picture of David Boggs last year holding an ancient networking card that was about the size of a textbook in terms of its dimensions. So again, anytime there's one of these stories about foundational technologies, I like to sort of share it. So it is worth a read. If you have a Google, if you have a Google Pixel, they're getting a new fast emergency dialer. Now this actually confuses me. So some of the unique Pixel features include things like assisted emergency calls, personal safety, and an emergency dialer. You think those would be like core features? You think the Pixel exclusive features would not fall into that area? Am I wrong? It seems like no. It seems like emergency dialing is not a premium feature, or it shouldn't be a premium feature. But again, well, I'm saying it isn't a premium feature. I didn't. Essential is a different category. I'm saying that it seems like making that a premium feature is strange. Because essential is what I can't do without. Premium is okay. I'm going to pay more for a better emergency dialer. It seems like every phone should have the same emergency features. That the premium stuff should be like luxury items. Like better ways of doing things that are not this. I think that if you're a company and you create a better way or a better interface for you to contact the police in the event of an emergency, I don't think that should constitute a premium feature. I'm committed to people being able to dial emergency services if they need them in the easiest way possible. That's why I said it doesn't seem like a luxury feature. But anyway, moving along. Android 13 is going to bring a unique feature to Android that people have apparently been asking for. Brightness control for the flashlight. Does iOS have this feature, Jerry? Okay. Well, again, it was very clever when the first people realized that they could turn on the flashlight that was for the camera permanently to make your phone into sort of an elementary flashlight. It surprises me that it's taken this long for somebody to say, "Well, what if we let you dim it?" Anyway, sometimes the simplest things take the longest time to do. Google Play is making it harder to tell what's new with apps again. So, well, they remember previously, and this was before you left Android. They made it harder for you to see to. There wasn't an easy way to, in one click anymore, to look at which apps were ready for update. So not only are they making that harder again, so they've hit it, and they're also hiding the last time the app was updated, and they're making the changelog harder to find. Again, some people are saying it might be unintentional, that the disappearing changelog may have to do with them not getting rid of the last updated date, but accidentally getting rid of more than that. But last time, if you remember, there was a lot of backlash and they brought it back. So we'll see. I like to know what's new in an app. I don't know why they think that I don't want to know. And again, yeah, but if every app on your phone had a party every time, that they did something, I'm fine with I have to go in there and look. I'm also fine with when the app updates the first time that I run it after it updates, it tells me what was new. And you've seen that a few times where there's like a pop up when you run an app after it's updated where it says, oh, here's some. Why do I want to know what they did? Some things are not worth it. If you fixed a bug, unless that bug affected me, okay, fine, I don't really need to know. But when you added a new feature, maybe like that energy thing I was mentioning with the Echo, maybe I won't notice it to take advantage of it unless you highlight it. And I don't want you to annoy me with it too much, but I think, telling me there's new stuff. I like how I have an app, Sleep as Android, which I've talked about. That's the one that hooks into my phaser. What they do is in the app, whenever they have an update, there's like and they have the standard screen with the sidebar. They have one of the things there, in addition to the various options, is read the new changelog. So it comes up. So when you see that, you know that if you click there, it'll show you what's new. And then eventually, I think after you look at it a few times, it vanishes. But you can always go in and find it. It's in the help section. So I like that I could just look at that. I don't know why they want to hide it. And apparently Google is getting rid of a feature that didn't really get very much traction. Assistant Snapshot, which was the successor to Google Now. So I read this article about people not appreciating this feature, and then a day later it was, oh yeah, Google's getting rid of it. So I didn't get to appreciate it for very long. Yeah. Yeah. They don't have an assistant app for iOS? I thought they did. Limitations, I'd imagine. And continuing the everlasting saga of the dark theme, apparently Google made their dark theme even darker. So apparently, instead of the dark theme being light gray, it's black. Yeah, I just sort of enjoyed that the article I cited, which is from 9 to 5 Google, they actually gave the hex code for the old gray and the new gray, so you could compare it yourself. Yeah. So they went from 202124 to 171717. Anyway, no, but dark mode wasn't dark enough. And in just one of those me randomly pointing it out, did you know that you can't pump your own gas in New Jersey, and they're thinking about changing it? I thought Oregon did change it. I haven't looked recently, but I've never actually driven in Oregon. I've been to, but I didn't rent a car there. Here we are. Oregon is one of only 2 states, the other being New Jersey, but they are, I thought they had changed it. I guess they're just talking about changing it also. Well, it's back to, there is a place for full service gas. Yeah, but there's also the question of, have we moved past the phase where it's really necessary? Because I think the problem in some places is if you make it no longer the law that you have to provide full service, then gas stations will just not offer it. For example, in New York, I don't see that many full service gas stations anymore. No, what I'm saying is there used to be somebody outside at some gas stations. I'm saying I can't find a gas station that advertises a full service pump anymore. I'm not saying there aren't there anywhere, but I'd have to drive around and find a gas station where they would pump gas for me. Really? I've never seen anybody come out. There must be nicer people in Florida. No, they make me go inside. And I've never asked them to come out and pump my gas for me. And I'd imagine there might be a response if I did. But there might be one. I've never noticed it. Never tried this. If there's a button, I've never looked for it. Because the last time I had a Yeah, but the last time that I had a problem at the pump, I went inside and fought with the guy. But so there was a lack of cooperation. I do have one other thing, and Jerry, you know, occasionally when I have a tech problem, I ask our audience to give me advice, and if history is any indication, they won't because nobody's given me advice in a while. So I had a keyboard problem over the weekend, so I ordered replacement keycaps for my mechanical keyboard. And you've commented many times on my mechanical keyboard's noise. You know, when I go like this. You heard that, right? Okay, so I decided that since I was replacing the keycaps because they were extremely dirty, and over time the lettering starts to rub off. I decided to switch from ABS plastic to PBT, which is the alternative for keycaps. Yeah. But when I asked around, nobody would give me an opinion about whether anybody had a preference for one over the other. So none of the people I know who use mechanical keyboards apparently have researched this issue and have come up or independently come up with their opinion of one versus the other. So do you have any opinions or advice for me? Yeah, my problem with ABS. Yeah, my problem with ABS comes with their tendency to pick up skin oils and other things and get shiny over time. Yeah, I thought the reason why I have two of the same keyboard, and the reason for that is another one of those Amazon didn't deliver something, and they sent me a replacement, and then the original one showed up 2 weeks later, and they said just keep it. So I have two versions of the keyboard, one with the original ABS plastic and one now with PBT, and I thought that was a good way to sort of compare. But I have I put on the PBT keycaps on this keyboard, and I think the rougher texture makes it, maybe in the long term it will be less likely to pick up things, but I need a long term in order to figure that out. And I have this thing, I had this problem years ago with when a company actually was explaining to me, they said that there's a percentage of the population, even though if, you may seal the keys with a coating, that their particular skin oils tend to dissolve that coating, thus causing the keys to rub off faster. Apparently I must fit into that category because mine go away. So the other thing that I changed with these caps is the printed letters are actually on the side of the cap, not on the top. It says they are. Yeah, and according to this is double shot, but again, the place that they're putting the legend is on the front. I'm saying my old keys were not double shot. The new ones are, but I decided that in the long term, what I would also do is have the printing done on the side. I'm sure you've seen keycaps where instead of it being on the top, it's on the side. It shouldn't happen. Yeah, but I figured I would try both at the same time. I think I sort of like the blank on the top where I'm going to be typing and possibly dirtying, and then the actual printing being on the side, so it's less likely to come off over time. But in this case, you are correct. It shouldn't come off with this type of key. But I still thought I thought blank was still a nice look. Yeah. Either way, I thought that the blank key made a nice aesthetic look. I don't understand how people do blank keys with nothing anywhere on them to indicate what key they are. Because then you have to remember in your mind what it is, and admittedly I typed enough that I probably could do that. But I like the idea of if I look down, I can actually see what the key is. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about that. Yeah, I'm talking about orientation. Sometimes I need to look down and move my hand, and then after that, I look up and don't pay attention to what I'm doing. But I discovered if all the keys are blank, I can't remember always to orient my hand correctly. So I like the visual cues of letters in order to just move my hand into position. But either way, if anybody has any opinions on mechanical keyboard keycaps, I'm interested. Still think these look nice, but we'll see how the PBT handles over time. It's supposedly a little more rigid and has more of a texture instead of a smoothness to it, which again apparently is divisive to some people. Anyway, so that brings us to the end of the show, and my headache feels a little better. So, Jerry, maybe you cured it. Maybe talking to you helped. Well, you never know. Sometimes you just need, that burst of adrenaline that comes with a Techno Buffet episode. Never know. So until next week, when I will be again coming from a temporary remote location, and then the week after that when I will be back sitting in this chair. So, unless something happens. So until next time. This time it was Amazon.